I think as we see in what's happened in Alabama, this issue is not over. Even here in Michigan, where we've secured these rights, if there's a second Trump presidency, we could see a national abortion ban. That means IVF. That means embryonic stem cell research, as well as, obviously, the fundamental right to make our own choices about our bodies and our health care. So this is very much at risk for American women and girls and families on this upcoming ballot. And I think that, too, is something we can't let people lose sight of.
That was Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer with some truth bombs there on the stakes of the 2024 presidential election after the Alabama Supreme Court ruled that embryos are people, imperiling the access to even participate in IVF and showing voters just how extreme Republican policies and court decisions are in a post-Roe world. Democrats have seized on this moment. NBC is reporting that, quote, Democrats from President Joe Biden on down are blaming the Alabama court's ruling that embryos are human on Trump's shaping of the U.S. Supreme Court and its subsequent overturning of Roe v. Wade. In response by Republican leaders to voters who are angry and afraid, unsure if they will be able to get a medically necessary abortion in their state or grow their families through IVF if Republicans take control of the White House and Congress has fallen woefully short of what voters deserve. Here is Texas Governor Greg Abbott when he was asked about the future of IVF in Texas.
Texas has one of the strictest anti-abortion laws in the country. Are you saying that families in Texas who are using IVF have extra embryos that are frozen, do not need to worry?
Well, so you raise fact questions that are complex that I simply don't know the answer to.
You're going through IVF, you live in my state, you have embryos frozen, and I got nothing for you. I call you back, Dana. Joining us now, President and CEO of Reproductive Freedom for All, Mini Timuraju, is here, and former RNC chairman and co-host of The Weekend right here on MSNBC. My friend Michael Steele's here. Michael Steele, let me go from the ridiculous to the profound. This is Tammy Duckworth, and this is just putting this back into focus of what infertility and IVF is actually like.
My infertility would become one of the most heartbreaking struggles of my life. My miscarriage more painful than any wound I ever earned on the battlefield. So it's a little personal to me when a majority male court suggests that people like me who are not able to have kids without the help of modern medicine should be in jail cells and not taking care of their babies in nurseries. I know I'm not alone when I struggle to understand how politicians who support this kind of policy can possibly call themselves pro-life.
Oh, I got one more for you. Sorry, Michael Steele. This is Tommy Tuberville. Watch.
I was all for it. We need to have more kids. We need to have an opportunity to do that. And I thought this was the right thing to do. People need to have that. We need more kids. We need the people to have the opportunity to have kids.
That he exists is just kind of amazing to me. But there he is on the decision that's so, it sets itself up for a bad joke, right? How bad is the Alabama decision? It's so bad that Trump went out over the weekend and you couldn't get between him and a camera when he was trashing it. That's how bad it is.
Yeah, and that's where they find themselves. The reality of it is very straightforward. That they've now gotten to the point that they don't know how to really manage their win, if you will, with the Dobbs decision. In other words, 50 years fighting to get Roe versus Wade overturned. During that time, no one had a conversation about the consequences when that happens and what the eventual fallout would be, how it would touch on IVF, contraception, healthcare, real healthcare issues for women that are caused by ectopic pregnancies or miscarriages and the like. And so now Tuberville and others find themselves unable to explain what next. And this is an opportunity for women to define very clearly for them what's next. And they can do so at the ballot box. They can make it very clear what their priority is here. Their health is more important to them than the politics of some man who doesn't have to carry a child. who doesn't have to worry about becoming pregnant because they want so much to start a family. And that's not to say that there aren't men that support women in those positions, because there are. But at the end of the day, the women are controlling here, and that's something that has been made very clear by Kansas decisions, by Oklahoma decisions, and other decisions around the country by voters who are making very clear where they are. Final point here, when you have within the pro-life community some 83% of evangelical Christians who support IVF, you know you kind of messed it up.
Yeah, I mean, Minnie, we talk about the numbers on abortion, and where the Republican bans would go in a post-Dobbs world is eliminating the exceptions. And we've come to know some of the women who've suffered. We've had to wait till they were septic to receive health care. We've had to carry their babies, their sick babies. And I think that we talk about those numbers as so politically fatal to Republicans. As Michael's saying, the NRSC, which is the Republican committee in charge of electing Republicans to the U.S. Senate, is the one that brought us those numbers he's talking about. 85% of all respondents, including 86% of all women, support increasing access to fertility-related procedures and services. IVF procedures received overwhelming support, with 86% of all participants and women advocating. Do you know what's going to happen to an IVF clinic if it risks criminal liability, if the power goes out and any damage is done to an embryo? They're going to go away. They will not exist. IVF won't be a thing in places that pass these laws. And I wonder how you see this building on top of what is already a public outcry over reproductive health care.
Well, you know, that memo is so interesting because I believe it's based on Kellyanne Conway's research, which she released in December, warning Republicans not to go in this direction. But look, it's too late. You know, once we went down the road of Dobbs, once they overturned Roe, once the court was stacked with these extremist judges, this was the natural end game, the natural end to this, or natural next step in this fight. And it's all rooted in, you know, so-called personhood theology, and the fact that, you know, even the chair of the NRC was a co-sponsor of the House legislation, Life at Conception Act. So they're so, I've said this so many times on the show, I apologize, but they're so intertwined with these right-wing extremist ideological organizations. It's now become, you know, mainstream GOP position. The Heritage Foundation has tons of research and work they put out on life at conception, beginning at conception. Project 2025 has a whole section on this. Dobbs had a footnote on personhood. Amy Coney Barrett refused to answer questions about personhood. It's here, it's now, and it will not stop at IVF. The next place they're going to go is contraception. And it's become impossible for the Republicans to detangle themselves from this situation. And it's our job to hold them accountable. You know, we just did an ad buy in 6 congressional seats were held by Republicans who are vulnerable on this very issue. They are squirming. They have no place to go.